Alright guys, what's up? Welcome back to another video. So my mission for today is to get the car started. Not driving or anything, I just want to get the thing started and hear it run. So what I've done so far today, I got the old wiring harness pulled out, basically from the ECU, and everything is pretty much uncut. I was able to pull the whole thing out. Unfortunately though, I did find this, I think this is like the control unit or something for the Vortec supercharger that was on there before. So I sent the guy the ECU for the car and didn't send him this. So the guy who bought it on eBay, I'm going to have to contact him and say, hey dude, I messed up, and send him this thing and see if I can get the computer back, because it's just in case I need that thing. So harness is out. Now basically I'm just going through and finding all the wiring. So this is factory wiring. It does have like a lug on it for what would be the starter and for the alternator. So I think this is set up the right length that I might still be able to use it with the alternator and the starter for this one without cutting anything. That would be great if I could reuse that as it is. That would be pretty slick. Other than that, all I did here so far was I put this little alligator clip on that plug because that's the ignition wire, and I just wanted to verify that that's actually getting power with the key on. So hooked the multimeter up, and it does get power when I turn the key, so that's good. And here's the diagram for the fuel pump there. So I'm gonna find basically what I want to do is find the fuel pump relay and just find the trigger that's activating the relay and run the fuel pump with that. So that's what I'll be doing next. Come along for the ride. Show you how I'm gonna tap into the fuel pump relay, make that thing work, and then we can just start hooking stuff up. Show you guys that this thing actually works. I have the black alligator clip coming over to the positive lead here on the multimeter. That's hooked up on the window, and I just have the other end of the lead grounded to the battery. Just to verify everything works, I'm going to try to turn the key. See, we don't have power. Now I'm going to push the clutch in, and I'll turn the key, and now we have 12 volts, 12.2. Key off, key on. So that means we have ignition with the clutch pushed in, so that works perfect. We'll be able to tap into that and go right to the starter. Alright, so I have the continuity buzzer set up on the multimeter, and I just wanted to do this because I'm trying to figure out what I like to do usually when I'm wiring these is try to wire as much as I can into the factory fuse box and factory wiring. So need a fuel pump relay, need a PCM relay. PCM relay is here. Fuel pump relay is here. I didn't have very many diagrams to look at. I did find one diagram that showed this panel, but the wiring combination was way off. So I wanted to understand how this panel was going to work. This is the fuel pump relay, but when I did what I did with the Ranger and I tried to bypass this just to verify it and run the fuel pump, it didn't work. And it didn't work until I turned the key. So then I figured out that this actually has an ignition relay that activates some of the fuses on the board, and then if this was bypassed, I used a one-wire relay bypass. I did a video on this, just how to make this thing, and you just put it in there and bypasses the terminals. So if the ignition relay is activated, then it'll run the fuel pump. But that would be good for testing, but I couldn't just run it like that all the time, because then anytime your key was in and forward, even if the engine's not running, fuel pump would be running, not controlled by the computer, blah, blah, blah. So basically, the power comes in here, and it comes to this ignition relay, transfers through the terminal, through the relay over to this terminal, then up to the fuel pump relay fuse, transfers through the fuse, then over to the relay, transfers through the relay, then down to this wire over here, which ends up being a black-yellow striped wire on this plug down here. So this is the second terminal up. It ends up being a black yellow wire on that plug. So that would be how the power passes through the relay to run the pump. But then I was trying to figure out how the relay is activated. So then I was trying to figure out how the relay was activated. So these other two terminals over on this side over here, this bottom terminal is a ignition source, which comes in over here. So this part of the relay gets its ignition source, and then the trigger for it is this third terminal up on the same one that has the output from to run the pump. So the trigger is actually a negative trigger that comes in here to activate the relay. So that's how the circuit works. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this third terminal up. It's a blue-yellow wire, or a blue-white wire, and I'm going to hook this all back up, put the fuel pump relay back in there with the fuse, and then give this thing a negative trigger manually, just with the alligator clip on the battery, and see if I can get it to run the pump that way. Just to verify it, then I know all I have to do is run the PCM signal right to this. I might have to convert it like positive to negative though. I believe it's a positive signal from the PCM, so I may have to convert that, but then I'll just be able to run it right to here and be done. Okay, so I got fuse box back in and wired up. I do have the alligator clip on that blue-white wire, which should be the trigger for that fuel pump relay. I have the key forward, so essentially when I touch this to the negative on the battery, we should see some gas come in there. I hear the relay clicking, but no gas. Weird. Okay guys, rookie mistake. I'll give you 5 points if you can figure it out. Forgot to put the fuse in. So we will put the fuse in, and we'll do the same thing. We'll touch this to the negative. Now we should see some gas come through there. There you go. So and that's just taking negative trigger, activating the blue-white wire, which triggers the relay to run the pump. So this setup kind of presented some different challenges, and it may not work the way that I had planned. So with the truck, I was able to just flip the wires because the fuse box actually had wires going to it. So the back of this fuse box is just a circuit board. So all of the relay joints, everything, it's a circuit board on the back. So I can't just switch the wires. Where on the truck, I had the same issue. The factory relay was a negative trigger, PCM is a positive trigger, so I just cut and flipped the wires on it, and I was able to use the same relay. So this one, I'm not able to cut and flip the wires, so it kind of negates the purpose of doing what I did, because I still have to add another relay to invert the polarity. So instead of converting the positive signal from the PCM to a negative trigger and running this, I could just use a relay and then run this black-yellow wire right here, because this is what runs the pump. So either way, I know how I want to do it. I understand how the circuit works, but it just kind of doesn't really help eliminate any steps, because you still have to add a relay either way in this situation. So that's kind of what I did over here originally, but you can see this is a PCM power relay, and this is just the relay that I used. It's all wired into the factory harness, starter relay, everything is using the factory fuse box. So I did change this when I switched to 2 pumps. This one's just kind of sitting in here, but this one was the fuel pump relay that went in here, and now I have a different, larger relay underneath because I switched to the dual Walbro 450 pumps. But before I was just using the factory relay with the polarity switch. Okay, so here's the beginning of the harness that's going to go on the car. I'm probably just going to put it on as it is and not rework any of it until later. I did have to add a crank sensor. The crank sensor plug was cut off, so I just used basically like a map sensor plug, and then I had to modify it a little bit. You can see the slot is on the wrong side on the map sensor plug. Some of the crank sensors are actually like this too, but I just cut that thing out there and taped this thing on just so I can kind of do it temporarily until I get the right plug. So that was surprising. That set me back a little bit trying to figure out what was wrong with that. Because I laid it all out, and I'm just making sure I have all the important sensors, and the frickin' crank sensor was gone. So it took me a little bit to figure that out and get it on there. So I'm going to probably put the intake on. We'll start to lay the harness over and get the fuel line and everything hooked up. All right, boys, here it is. And girls, we leave for SEMA in about 45 minutes. This is what she looks like. Showstopper. So I just threw the truck intake. I don't have the bolts yet for the car intake, so that was kind of an oversight. So I went to the hardware store to see if I could get some bolts for it, but I didn't find any, so I just bought some, and I threw the truck intake on for now with the returnless rail, and we got everything just kind of wired up. I just hacked off all the pinks off the plug, and I can probably go through and do a harness video. Some of you guys were asking for that. So this harness wasn't really very complete to start with. So it was missing some plugs and some other things. So, and it didn't have any of the transmission wiring. So I don't know if I wanted to do a how-to video. I do have one already, but this is what's going to be hooked up to activate the starter. I just got to hook that up to the ignition wire. I have a fuel line ran. So I'm going to try to start it. I didn't delete the VATS off the computer yet. I'm just going to try to start it and see if it fires for a second. If it fires for a second and dies, I know it's the VATS and everything else is working. So I'm going to try that and see what happens. Get the fire extinguisher out just in case. This thing is kind of rigged. So we'll see where we get. I did try to crank it over already, just when I hooked the starter up, and it was cranking kind of slow. So I don't know if it's because the battery was dead or dying. Yeah, it's a really small wire for the starter. You goddamn cricket! Got a cricket in the garage. Mother crickets. Alright, so we're going to try this again. I tried to do this as best I could off of memory. So I hooked up all the pink wires to positive, but there's actually two PCM power wires that are orange. So I brought the oranges over, and right away I heard the idle air control motor start moving. So I think PCM has power. We'll try it now because I verified it wasn't sparking or anything. So we'll see if we get a different result this time. Boys and girls.
So now we have the file open. You can delete the VATS. So we can go into System, General, and then VATS Control. I already did this, but it was in serial. It starts on serial. So just select this, select None, and then go up and write your file. And then you could use the right calibration, but there's also a right VIN tuner lock VATS, so you can just write the VATS, and it takes about 15 seconds. So I'm also going to be starting this thing with no MAF. So I'm going to delete the MAF, or I'm going to put it into speed density right away and just fail the MAF, so I don't have to worry about that thing. So in engine diagnostics, I'm going to go to this MAF frequency fail high, and I'm going to put this at 0, so this thing will fail at 0 hertz. But then there's also these engine codes that have to be changed also. So I usually change this P010203, all the mass airflows, and turn the SES enable off. So then I'm going to go and change these to mill on first error. So what this is going to do is it's going to allow it to fail at 0 hertz. We'll get all three of these codes. It'll activate the code, and then it'll fail it into speed density mode. You'll have these codes, they'll remain active, but they need to be on there. So don't make the mistake of turning these to no error reported, or it won't fail into speed density properly. Ask me how I know. Alright, so now that those are changed, I'm going to go in and write calibration. We'll write the file, and this should be good to get it to start and run a little bit. I could also go as far as deleting the O2 sensors and that stuff right now, because I'm not going to have those hooked up. But it's not going to be hooked up to the coolant temp sensor, and the coolant temp sensor is what's going to send it into closed loop and allow the O2 sensors to start working. So I don't have coolant in it right now, so it's not going to be reading coolant temperature and getting up to 130 or 140 degrees when it would go into closed loop, so I shouldn't have to worry about that at this point. So that's written. We'll close this and we'll go try it.
Okay, so we have VATS deleted off the computer. I deleted the VATS and failed the math, so it should go into speed density mode right away. And we're just gonna run it for a couple seconds basically, and if it runs at all. So let's try it. So I think it was just getting flooded from all the crank attempts. I unhooked the, pushed on the shredder valve, bled the pressure out of the rail, and unhooked the fuel pump, and then it started. So it was getting way too much fuel. So, yeah. And we got oil. Looks like we got oil pressure. Oh, I never tightened the fitting. I don't think I tightened the fittings in the back either. I think I just hand tightened them. It's good I got oil though, so that's a good sign. I'm going to tighten those up and then we'll try it again. Yeah, the fittings in the back were actually pretty good. The front infeed line did leak, so while I was down there I took the oil filter off just to make sure that it was actually full and filling just from that little start that it had. And looks like there's oil. There's definitely a bunch of oil there. So now that I emptied the rails out, I'm gonna put the fuel pump wire back on and see if we can get it to maybe run a little longer. Well, that was probably not good. Revved a little high there. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's what happens when you forget that you have every vacuum port on the intake open. So I had the brake booster line, this one here, and the one for the fuel pressure regulator were open. Honestly, don't even know if I want to bring it up, but I didn't realize that I swapped an EGR intake onto this thing, and the EGR hole was open. I'm used to the non-EGR intakes, and I have like 4 different intakes. I got 2 on the shelf, and then this one that I slammed on there, and I didn't even realize that that fucking EGR tube was open. So I blocked that off now, and that's why I was revving to the moon. And when I shut the key off, it just still has power. The only thing I was doing was killing the fuel pump, so that was pretty dumb, but that's why we do these things, right? So you guys know what to do differently. Maybe this time we'll just shit a rod through the block and be done with it. boys. She runs. Still had a little bit of a vacuum leak from my makeshift plate that I put on there, but it starts, it runs, it doesn't sound bad. That's it, I think. I'm going to bed. I'm way too tired for this shit right now. That's it for this one, guys. I just wanted to get a video for you guys of it running and make sure that we got the computer and everything decent. Harness works. All that stuff is good. I am going to be putting the LS1 intake on there when I get the bolt, so we shouldn't have to worry about the EGR issue or any of that anymore. That was a big oversight. So I'm a little bit more excited. I got to hear it run. I wish I would have got to hear it idle a little bit lower, but there was the vacuum leak, even with the plate on there. So put the other intake on. After that, I'm just going to work on cleaning up the wiring, and I think I might do the swap harness a little bit different. I'll still do standalone, obviously, but I think I might unloom everything and try to make it really clean, where I just run each sensor individually back to the computer and completely redesign the whole harness. So stick around for that one. I did also shoot 2 clips today of deleting the VATS and how to fail the math. So I'll probably do those in separate videos. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.